Welcome to another episode from Leap to Success, guiding you towards success. In today's episode, we'll be looking at equivalent fractions in more detail. Firstly, we're going to start off by discussing the definition of equivalent fractions. So, equivalent fractions are two or more fractions that are all equal, even though they have different numerators and denominators. Now, what we'll do is just to understand these two keywords, we're just going to quickly go through these as numerators and denominators. So, as you know, we have fractions. So, fractions over another number. So, in this case, the top number of the fraction is called a numerator, and the bottom number of that same fraction is called a denominator. Something to know. Okay. All right. So now that we have that clear, we're going to move on. We'll move on to some examples in relation to equivalent fractions. So now I've got this fraction called a half, and I will go in order to find the next equivalent fraction, meaning the next fraction that is the same value, different appearance. So what I'll do is I will multiply the top by 2. And when I multiply the top by 2, I can also multiply the bottom by 2. So again here, whatever you do with the top, you have to do with the bottom. So if you're timesing 2 there, you have to multiply 2 here. So now let's have a look at the answer. So 2 times 1, in your head you should know. And then 2 times 2, well, 2 is 4. Okay. Again, if there is any situation where you're having trouble with your knowledge, we can always get this side. I'll just quickly get this on the side for you. And that way you can keep an eye on your times table knowledge if needed. Make it in the corner. Okay. So 2 times 2, in that 2 times 1 is there, 2 times 2 is 4. Okay. So now when we carry on, so the next step is we need to find the next equivalent fraction in order. Now, a slight error here, where if you're going in order from a half, often someone might time 3, well, you resort back to the original calculation. So that original fraction, you multiply that, and then you multiply, obviously, whatever you do at the top, bottom, you should have guessed it by now. So you multiply that by 3 also. Now, if you take the calculation, we've got 1 times 3, 1 times 2, 1 times 3 equals 3. Everyone should know that. And 2 times 3, 2. Perfect. Okay. And then we'll do, so again, we've got our half, 1 over 2 equals 2 over 4 equals 3 over 6. Now, finally, we're going to finish up with one more equivalent fraction. So I'm going to take it with the green color. So now we're going to times this by 4. So we times it by 2 and 3. Now we're going to move on to times by 4. I'm going to quickly get that across, times that by 4 also. So now the calculation is with the original fraction, 1 times 4 equals 4, and 2 times 4 equals 8. Now, okay, so this basically shows us the equivalent fractions for a half. So all of these fractions mean the same thing. They're all equivalent. Just to put that into practice, for example, if we had 4 over 8, okay, we've got 4 over 8 there, and we had to simplify this fraction. So remember, when you simplify it, you need to break it down by the same number. So ideally, you're dividing. In this case, what you're doing is you're dividing by a number that fits into both of these. So often you can say divide by 2 because they're both even numbers, but if you have progressed on a little further, you can see that they both go into the 4 times table. So you can divide both numbers by 4. Now, when you divide both numbers by 4, 4 divided by 4 gives you 1, and 8 divided by 4 gives you 2. So this clearly shows you when you simplify each of these fractions, you the fraction that you started with, which is a half. Okay, so therefore equivalent fractions. And not only that, if you look through, we have obviously the mastery side of maths is that you need to know your visual aspect. So if you've got in many exams in relation to year group exams in primary and SATs exams and in 11 plus, you will have a focus on knowing how to read diagrams, shaded shapes, and what they represent as a fraction. So if we look here, we've got two parts to a circle. So that means that the two parts means the number that we have in total, two parts. And one of them is shaded. So we call that 1/2. Now, as you move along, you can start counting the parts. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 parts. So that is the total number, which goes at the denominator at the bottom. And then we look at how much is shaded. So we've got 2 shaded. And again, so on and so forth. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 will be your denominator because that is the total number of parts that you have there. And 3 of them are shaded. And the next one, we have 8 parts in total, and 4 of them are shaded. Okay, so today we've looked at equivalent fractions.